Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I know it's quite early, so thank you very much for showing up. And most times you present in conferences like this, we just present ourselves. So it's good to have you guys here. So my work is on colonial shadows and national dream, assessing African freedom through Fanon's lens. To start with, I just want to introduce myself. To say that I'm a transdisciplinary scholar. Between 2020 and now, I have published over 55 peer-reviewed articles. My interest is on the power dynamics of race and class and decolonization. So my research focus, I look at the SDG 2, 13, 6, and 16. That's on human security, food hunger, zero hunger, climate action, water, and as well as the place of peace and justice, environmental justice basically. And I also look at migration studies and deliberative governance. And I look at all these concepts from the premise of Black ecology. What do I imply by that? What is it for the Black man? What is it for the Black community generally? How does it impact the Black community? So basically that's what all my research is all about. So talking about the research for today, I want to look at, I'll just start with an icebreaker to ask a question. We talk about independence and all, we celebrate independence in all countries in Africa and also here in the global north. But the question that I ask myself every Independence Day in any country I find myself in Africa is, are we truly free? Can we really celebrate independence? Are we really free in the true sense of it? And what I've come to realize is that independence itself is not equal to freedom. We may be celebrating independence, but we are definitely not free. So why then are we celebrating what is just symbolic, but the substance itself is not there? So I look at this from the premises of Fanon, right? And to look at Fanon's discourse on the pitfalls of national consciousness, and to argue that within the premises of Fanon's discourse on pitfalls of national consciousness, how does it affect us in the 21st century Africa? What's the implication of that for the current African state? And so my question is, like I said, to look at to what extent does post-independence trajectory reflect genuine sovereignty? And how does Fanon critique this present coloniality in the space of Africa? So when we talk about sovereignty, we are familiar with the fact that it's supposed to be absolute independence and freedom, internal and external, right? And then when we talk about coloniality, we're talking about the presence, the continuous presence of colonialism post colonization. Yes, we talk about neo-colonialism, but the transition itself, the practical nature of it is what we refer to as coloniality in itself. So first, Fanon's argument in the pitfall of national consciousness is to argue that what happens is that there is the imitation, the new bourgeoisies, the elites of the new colonial states, the independent states, quote and unquote, imitate the former colonial master. And I always want to talk about the fact that if any of us have read The Animal Farm. Animal Farm? Okay, so you realize in The Animal Farm, the first argument was to say that 2 legs are bad, 4 legs is good, right? And the reason why 2 legs were bad was because the farm owner, quote unquote, the colonial master was on 2 legs. So it was bad to have 2 legs, and then 4 legs was better. But when there was an overthrow of the farm owner, right, the elites, quote unquote, of the farm now change the narrative and say 2 legs, 4 legs are good, but 2 legs is better. Now there was an imitation of what? Of the colonial of the farm owner basically, which was the colonizer in itself. And we realized that during colonialism there was whole conversation, and that's what we do. There's a whole conversation around the fact that we need to rule ourselves, we need to do things our own way, the African way. But post-independence, we realized that most of these elites that assume power practically imitated the same European setting. That it was just a change of face, but not a change of substance. So we practically it now became a dog eat dog syndrome, basically. So that's what you find in the African states. And like I said, all the emerging bourgeoisies, they mimic the structure, the political structure, the government structure that they were supposed to jettison, right? This was the government structure they clamored for and said they wanted to be part of the pie. And because of this, I have a reservation. To most people, we call the national heroes, quote and unquote, in Africa. Because my argument is to say that most of these people was just the concept of trying to also get their own share of the national pie, right? And then the people were the collateral. They were the collateral, not the collateral beneficiary this time. They were just used so that they can also amass power to themselves, basically, because they repeated the same thing they did. And Kakaba also said the same thing. He said that what we see is the repetition of that, of the local elite, the betrayal of the local elites, basically. And he called for the need for a class suicide. What that implies is that there has to be a consciousness that they don't think for themselves, but they think for the collective. But what you find in most cases is that they think for themselves, basically. But we see that, like I said, in the system of government and our economy, in our religion, and many things. Talking about that, in mimicking, and what you see even in contemporary society now, is the fact that, for instance, in West Africa, there was a clamor to have a similar currency, right? Just the way as my prof just talked about now, the unity of Africa and the likes. Yes, we look at this notion from what is happening around the world. In Europe, there's euro, right? Similar currency and the likes. But in most cases, we do not follow the structure. How did they come to having similar currency? We just want to jump into similar currency, not understanding the different dynamics that find themselves in Africa, in West Africa, for instance. That has not been able to be achieved, but this is a preposition. And then also, for instance, during COVID, you realize that most African governments do not have a clear direction on what they should do for COVID. But what they were doing is that whatever the West does, we just replicate it in Africa. So we talk about wearing of face masks. Everybody's wearing face masks in Africa. You say shut down, and then we are shutting down. Not understand the context to which we should shut down, or the context to which we should do these things. So basically that's what you find even in contemporary Africa. Another point is the failure to address the structural injustice of colonialism, right? And the argument here is that the structural injustice is that there has been historical exploitation of the ordinary person in Africa. And for us to truly have independence, we have to address this historical structure. We have to address poverty. We have to address the land, for instance, right? There has to be a return of the land, right? And that's the argument that is still happening in South Africa, for instance. There has to be the return of this. People need to have these resources to be able to